started.
Hello everybody and welcome to another Beyond All Reason video. Today we are on the map Red Comet Remake. And today we have two legends. Mr. Autopilot in red, Mr. 1v1. And then their opponent in blue, Mr. rAndy, playing as Cortex. And we can see it here, rAndy going for a long walk to the third metal extractor here, which gave him time to actually regen energy before transitioning into his energy production. And Autopilot actually not doing the same thing, going for that solar there and building an LLT. Now we have to see that sort of defensive build on Comet Catcher, but don't get to see this map quite as often anymore. So we'll see how much faster rAndy is going to be getting his factory built and units out as opposed to the different approach of Autopilot. Now, rAndy here also positioning his factory in a somewhat different position. So Autopilot actually has positioned his factory like here, whereas rAndy has his in the middle. And that will mean that forces coming out of this is going to be able to defend those metal points. And you can actually see that he's placed the metal point off center. Press F4. That's the actual metal point. But obviously he's actually placed it just off center. He's still producing the same amount of resources. But it does mean that he has given himself maybe like a fraction of a second extra. Now, with Autopilot starting vehicles here, it does give Autopilot the ability to build scouts, which is what we're seeing out straight away from Autopilot, followed by a couple of construction vehicles and then into incisors, whereas his opponent is obviously going bots, as we mentioned before. And this one grunt is basically intended to defend and intercept any scouts. Now, this is pre-Season 2 changes, so that applies to both the incisors, grunts, and lasers in general. So if you are watching this in the future where Season 2 has already started, just bear that in mind. Now, we have seen a game fairly recently where rAndy was completely annihilated by Kitty. When rAndy opened with vehicles and Kitty went with bots, Kitty harassed a lot with bots early on, causing the problems that vehicles have, which is they are expensive. And with so many bots, Kitty overwhelmed their opponent, rAndy, by just spreading him so thin that he was able to do damage to the base. Now, will rAndy be able to duplicate that? Now, we've started to see this more in pro play here. Initially noticed Chisato doing it quite a bit, but more players are starting to do this. And what that is when units get attacked, that they're builders chucking down something with a large footprint that's going to intercept those shots. Like you saw there, rAndy built some solars in a position that would either block or absorb damage from his opponent, and Chisato used that quite a lot. And metal that is on those like things that decay goes back into your economy, so it's not like you're actually losing anything really, other than a little bit of metal that you've put in to keep that unit alive. But generally, keeping a unit alive is more valuable than, you know, just a couple of metal. Now, if you're new to the channel or new to the game in general, a little tip here about solars, and I can't tell if we can see it here. Yeah, see. So closed, I'm holding spacebar here while hovering over something. And when it's selected, you can see it shows you the information about the unit. And the most important thing here is when you can see closed. A closed solar collector has 100% extra armor, equaling a max HP of 710. as opposed to when it is open of 355. So what you can see here is rAndy actually using it as a wall that is generating energy. And any of these that get shot, they instantly close up, increasing that health. And is going to give him a bit of a defense from any raids that come right by. They're not going to be able to get the metal extractors easy. But LLTs that are positioned here will still be able to shoot over because of the height differences. Now rAndy may be about to lose a construction vehicle here. Oh no, he gets the grunts in the way, able to tank a shot. And the constructor stays alive. Now arms... advanced metal extractors, which are the exploiters here, the armed ones, they are very effective, but they are quite costly. So you can see both players now moving towards the middle and going to have a bit of a slinging contest. Now it is easier for that slinging contest to be done by rAndy here, who has access to rocket bots, and this guy will just slowly pepper away at the LLTs. It's going to require a construction vehicle from Autopilot to be able to build a defense that is going to be able to stop these rocket bots from being able to do anything. Now, Autopilot is quite spread out here. He is pushed very, very far forward. And this does open up some potential risks for Autopilot of being cut off. This rocket bot is going to slowly just make its way down here, taking out all these defenses, and that will cut off Autopilot's commander. We can see Autopilot preparing for that, though, by building a factory in this very, very forward position, which is going to give him access to reinforcements by his commander. And we don't often see proxy labs built. We are starting to see them a bit more. But not anywhere near as much as you would see from something like Supreme Commander, for example. Now in sizes, very tanky tanks for this early stage when you compare them with grunts. And able to flank the defenses of rAndy here and able to kill these guards, LLTs here pretty quickly. The self-destruct does go off, but doesn't manage to inflict the required damage. We just see how long these solars take to die there when they weren't actually closed up. So a bit of equal damage dealt there. Thugs now making their way towards the middle to help secure rAndy's position. Counter thugs being built by Autopilot as well. And as we quickly look over the bases of both players, you can see that not a single construction turret is been built in Autopilot's base as of yet. You might be building this kind of a shape here with the plan of putting construction turrets in here, maybe. Not enough forces, though, for rAndy to really push in here. Now that there's a factory, it's going to be quite difficult for rAndy to push in with his commander. And we're also seeing construction bots out. They could build a heavy laser tower or even aggravators, which we have now seen a lot more use from them since the trajectory changes. They've been made a lot more useful. Where is Andy's commander going? I thought he was literally just marching into the base with those thugs. Now, what we do see relatively often in 1v1s is commanders being behind thug balls and using the repair ability on the commander to force multiply, shall we say, the thugs. Now, rAndy is taking quite a bit of damage here. And this is not a very favorable trade for him right now. Being this close to a factory, it's going to be pretty quickly. Autopilot is going to be able to replenish those forces. Now, we do see a group of incisors have made it around into the back of rAndy's base. Actually seems like, yeah, they're going through the front of the solars here, and you can see they're closing up, and as soon as they close up, take a little bit longer to kill here, but they do take quite a while to close. Desperately, LLTs are being built. Not enough. Also, he's not redirecting any of his forces, using solars still just to kind of stop them hitting the metal extractors, which has been successful so far. He does have the ability to build resbots as well. And now finally, that is quite a lot of energy damage dealt there. But when we select rAndy, we can still see he has plenty of energy. And at the same time, rAndy now making a push onto some of the flanks here. Now, rAndy's commander in a bit of a precarious position here. He's got incisors to the left and thugs to the right. And he's only got a relatively small size of thugs. He could get collapsed on pretty quickly here if he's not careful. He's trying to use his comm to defend, but if he gets sandwiched here by these two sets of forces, it's going to be pretty game over for him. Economy-wise, we can see it's only just in the red. Build power is definitely in the blue. 3% difference in economy is not a lot when it comes to metal produced. Energy produced is still advantageous to rAndy. But the difference we're seeing here is that rAndy is making a conscious effort to repair his thugs with his commander, keeping as many forces alive, whereas his opponent, Autopilot, is just quite happily letting them die and then rezzing them instead. We are seeing another ball of incisors about to head towards rAndy's base. And he doesn't really... I mean, he could just redirect some of those forces, but... So we quickly check this force making its way around, but this is the more important one here, is all of these thugs firing lots of shots back and forward. The resbots are trying to do some repairs here, but it does look like this could be anyone's game still. It did initially look like rAndy had more forces, but he has lost them very quickly because of splitting way too much off here to the south. Meanwhile, his expansion constructors have been destroyed, and his base is getting completely annihilated as well. This single LLT will not be enough to stop these incisors. He definitely needs something else. Resbots are here to try and save the day, but a lot of energy there has been destroyed. And we can see most of the vehicle production has been stopped from Autopilot. And to be fair, Autopilot seems quite happy to fight here. He has a factory. He has fresh units coming out. Autopilot's units has... rAndy's units have to travel a very long way. And it's kind of maybe more advantageous here for rAndy to fall back. Or try and attack the actual base. His main base. This is where most of his energy production is. And that does seem like that is his plan. Changing tactics here rather than pushing into a very fortified position. rAndy decides, screw it. If you're not going to defend your base, I'll take it out. And now makes a slow march towards Autopilot's main base. But the problem with this is that it leaves his base quite heavily exposed. Autopilot could have chosen to just attack rAndy's base instead. But bringing the comm with him is very, very risky. Marching the commander into a pit as well. And it seems like he's not actually going to attack the base anymore. So splitting up his forces. Whilst that happens though, the incisors are just come in again. He really needs better LLTs. Some twin guards may be able to do better here. But this is more and more metal being left in the base that rAndy can resurrect. Oh, we actually see rAndy moved his commander off elsewhere. But that has shut down a lot of the expansion of Autopilot, as well as still inflicting more and more damage. A transition over to Brutes, though, from Autopilot is going to give him a bit more firepower than these thugs are able to produce. And as the last two units die in the base, we see that the thugs just marching their way across the middle of the map, taking out all of the defenses. And both players will be basically down to what they have in their base. Slight advantage Autopilot from having this position further forward. But other than that, both players basically down to starting economy. And we see no transition, though, planned from rAndy. Also, no Tech 2 transition or air support being planned here. Which is interesting. We do see some twin guards now finally going up to help deal with the incisors. But a lot of metal has been left here. As we select 1.34k metal. And that's just being resurrected. And that terrain is going to be a lot of resources to lose. We actually see now rAndy doing the opposite of what happened to him. And sending just waves of incisors that were actually autopilots. Just to do some side harass. Moving down the wide flanks, both north and south. Trying to inflict some damage. Cause some micro to be spent elsewhere. These thugs are not going to make it anywhere. And now with Brutes on the field, it'll be interesting to see if rAndy decides he needs to transition up to something else. Unable to really get much damage. He gets a couple of metal extractors. Will not get that last constructor. And it's funny because a moment ago, it looked like Autopilot was pretty heavily contained into his base. But now the whole map is just reopened up and is now super heavily red. We're finally amassing a bit of a force of units here. rAndy decides he's going to try and make a move back, but army value is so heavily on Autopilot's side right now. It's going to take some tremendous micro to be able to deal with this. Lots of resbots ready to try and secure the wreck fields. And this can make a difference. There's quite a lot of wrecks here. Army value is significantly advantage Autopilot. And we can see on the mini-map, which we're about to look at in just a moment, there is a big force of these guys right here. 11 thugs marching their way towards rAndy's base. And the expansion in the middle, again, just getting taken out by rAndy, sorry. Taking out Autopilot's expansions. And see, the armed mail extractors are good, but against the higher tier units, just not anywhere good enough. Now, metal a second looks slightly skewed, 87%. That is purely from all of the reclaiming and resurrecting. Kind of setting things weirdly off. So we can see this guy here just eating up all 800 of that metal. But the resbots already resurrecting a lot of stuff. And now switching away from that fight as that's about to end. Quite an important battle now takes place just outside of rAndy's base. His wall of solars is done a fairly decent job at keeping that twin guard alive. And that will force Autopilot back, but again, the freshly resurrected exploiters get taken out, and it just seems like both of them are just consistently trading places here. And rather than defending the wreck field that he's just gotten, we see rAndy making a push. But with that, we're going to keep an eye at the base over here, because rAndy is in danger as his base is getting attacked from two sides now. Autopilot playing it a bit safe though, surprisingly, and not really going in for the kill. Oh, Andy's comm though, maybe making a mistake here, walking out right into the middle of the open with no units to defend him. These guys could kill him very quickly, but luckily for him that they're not. And as the base gets surrounded on two sides, luckily there's plenty of laser towers here now to defend. But still, base damage being dealt. Autopilot hasn't really had any damage dealt to his base in a while now. And Autopilot does fall back on the north. Not really fallen back on the south just yet, but his commander in a interesting position here. Now he realizes and pulls it back. But looking elsewhere on the map, he did manage to reach the base, rAndy. Pounders, though, with huge amounts of impulse damage, will slow down any forces there. And this big attack in the middle makes some room as well. Both players not really able to secure any ground long term. And slowly but surely just consistently losing it. And then the reclaim just keeps those forces alive. Basically, whoever can kill whoever's Resbol blob first may end up winning this. And the only one to actually have a Resbol blob currently is rAndy. And with 1.6k reclaim in his base, he might be able to make use of it. Slightly dangerous position though for him is the almost 3.5k metal right in the near part of Autopilot, next to his base and next to the middle. And the res spots are already off to work, resurrecting the forces that were just killed and trying to deal with these guys at the top. Again though, the base of rAndy getting attacked again and again. But neither player able to hold down any sort of territory long term. And this is going to be quite dangerous for Autopilot. As these group of tanks move along the bottom here, there's a lot of undefended metal points that are going to be completely destroyed. And he has nothing that is going to be able to keep up with those forces. Oh! Changing his mind. That's quite a surprise. Yeah, Andy living on rezzed army and buildings. Exactly. This is the only thing keeping him alive at the moment, because it should be huge advantage to Autopilot right now. He's had a lot of terrain for a very long time. And we could just see all of these forces just getting resurrected, keeping him in this game. And the fact that, you know, the spots that are directly next to rAndy's base have been taken over by Autopilot, and plenty of defensive structures being built as well. I don't know how rAndy can win this. He needs the res bots, so he needs the bot lab. But he kind of really needs something a bit more tankier, like, you know, tanks, to be able to deal with some of these defenses. And just the sheer quantity of units, like, it's quite difficult. Also, the fact that there's this reinforcement station, like right here, with 3 construction turrets pumping out fresh units. Oh, the Resbol blob gets dangerously close. And they are somewhat volatile, so if one goes up, quite a lot end up going up with them. They're still able to secure the reclaim again. And Autopilot having to fall back to try and not lose more forces. Even though army value is still showing considerable advantage to Autopilot, he's not won just yet. And we do see rAndy doing a good job here at continuing to apply pressure as much as he can. Attacking, sending small detachments off to different areas. And nice drawing there. Predicting the future. Do you agree with this? Find out soon enough. As so many forces are grouping up now on the north side. And in the middle. And at the bottom. The only way rAndy has been able to survive so far is by basically winning fights and claiming all of the reclaim and resurrecting everything. Now, he is starting to not be on the winning end of any of these fights. And that is causing him some problems. Losing the fight over here and being completely surrounded. The final push for the base. rAndy knows it's over. Surprisingly though, not going in, not like going all in. Autopilot still being very, very hesitant. Probably waiting for the rest of his forces to group up. Fortress rAndy right here. Trying to hold on. I don't know if he can last another 5 minutes of this though. We can see Tech 2 transition actually occurring now from Autopilot. With a 463% millisecond difference. Purely from the reclaim. But actually, it might not be looking at it. rAndy with only 11 metal income. Autopilot with 64. It's only going to be so much longer that rAndy's going to be able to keep this up for. The sheer overwhelming economy of Autopilot is going to overwhelm him. It's just a matter of time. Depending on how he uses his resources, that is. We can see that the forward bot lab, the proxy lab, which probably saved Autopilot, to be honest with you. That very forward position was a heck of a problem for rAndy to deal with. He was not able to push him out at all. And rAndy calling himself a noob. And now only just investing into shurikens. Don't quite know if this is going to be enough to save the day. But really, all rAndy needs is one good fight with shuriken support. And then instantly res it with all of these res bots he's got. And that could be enough of a force to deal with it. He doesn't want to be the one to commit to the fight though. Because anywhere he does commit, he is going to end up losing ground. Like, there's a lot of forces still at the top. 19. 20 at the bottom and in the middle. Whoa, my camera control there is terrible. 64 units in the middle. As opposed to the mere 54 all over for rAndy here. Now he's trying to keep the shurikens secret. Because as soon as the shurikens are noticed, anti-air is going to start coming out. And at the moment, that is an advantage that rAndy has. And you can see him slowly pushing off Autopilot here. I agree with this line from Timo here. Autopilot should kind of just make a push here. He has such a huge army in the middle. That, combined with a push from there, could quite easily overwhelm rAndy. But, you know, that's the benefit of spectator cam, right? You can see everything. How many shurikens does he have now? 14. I mean, the reason why not to go T units, because he's only on a metal income of 13. He can't afford to go T2. But here come the shurikens. However, fighters are already in the air, making their way across. And this one last fight from rAndy will be all he hoped for. But it is not going to be enough. And with that, rAndy knows it's over and calls the GG. Very well played, both players. The proxy lab of Autopilot doing a huge amount. Both players basically down to their bases at one point. But that proxy lab was able to basically keep Autopilot's comm alive by pumping out unit after unit. And that just, I think, changed the game, really. So thank you all for watching. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.